Welcome to the OSA Fine Arts Diploma podcast. We are recording at the Ottawa School of Art in May 2026 during graduation season. I'm Adrian Gore, Diploma Coordinator of the Fine Arts Diploma program, a 3-year vocational program focused on preparing emerging artists within the Canadian cultural context. So today I'm speaking with Frances Ashe, who is graduating this year. So I'd like to ask you, where are you in the program right now?
So I'm finishing the program. I have one mentorship that's ongoing. Other than that, I'm finished my classes and I'm graduating in June 2026 in about a month and a half.
How would you describe your practice to someone who has never seen your work?
This is always a hard one. I feel like I kind of veer between maybe a couple different methodologies, different ideas, but I think if I had to sort of describe it overall, it's sort of an investigation of, I think, something essential about what it is to be a human being in sort of all the manifestations of that, whether that's psychological, emotional, and largely physical, because I do a lot of figurative work. So I'd say sort of the common themes within all my work are that, having a sense of sort of whether it's an individual or multiple bodies, sort of trying to find a stasis, like trying to find stillness and trying to find kind of a fixed sense of self within kind of this liminal moving space. And that speaks a lot to, I think, the struggle that I think all humans go through, regardless of sort of life situation or things that have happened or any, events. I think there is a little bit of tension and struggle just in existing as a human and just in being conscious. And so that's sort of what I try to express, both visually in terms of subject, but also material, is sort of a tension between rough gestural mark making and sort of a smooth traditional application of paint.
I'd like to mention that you are having a solo show right now as we're speaking in the Lee Matasi Gallery. So how do you feel about your work being in that space?
It's very exciting. It's the first time I've seen it like that. It feels kind of professional and very pulled together. I think, the more you study art, the more you realize that presentation and exhibiting is a really important part of, I think, how the work is consumed. Looks very different sitting on my floor in my condo versus on a gallery wall. And I think too, with the kind of work I do, there is a sense of it's a little bit kind of dark and twisted and psychological. So I think having kind of all those large scale figures almost piled on top of each other, crowded into a small space, there's also a little bit of an element of like an installation piece and the viewers almost being in this world that I'm trying to explore with my art. So really, really great to see. Really fantastic.
So what has your experience at OSA been like overall?
It's been fantastic. It's been a really good experience. I've been here now for 3 years. I started with the certificate program, which is a 1-year-long program. Wasn't sure what I was going to do. Just for some background, I'm kind of a second career artist. I was in IT for 9 years. Was pretty unhappy and just had the opportunity to kind of switch and pursue something that I was excited about. So I chose art. Did the 1 year and ended up staying on for the 3-year Fine Arts Diploma. I think that, art is, unlike some other art, I think to learn, you need a long kind of time horizon. I think you need can take a long time to produce a painting. And so I think you need to be able to kind of put in that time and see your work grow over a longer period of time than, versus something that you're maybe practicing and it takes 5 minutes and then you do it again and you do it again. Art has kind of can be like a week or a month long cycle. So I think 1 year it wasn't enough. I kept going and did the 3 years. And I think maybe what stood out the most for me is the community. Really, really exciting to sort of build a community and have people around you who are sort of trying to do the same things, encountering the same problems, being able to share, advice or what feels like your progress. And then I think you start to see other people's work in your work and vice versa. And there's something is kind of just sort of magical about that, I think, having a group of people producing and making together over a couple of years. It's just been like the connections and the friendship and having, people with similar interests and a similar drive, just really pushes your art in a way that I don't think could be done alone.
And I know that you're continuing your studies. Can you tell us a little bit about your future projects?
Definitely.
How do you move forward from here?
Yeah, so my goal right now, and it's sort of, I'm trying to find my way, I guess, with shorter term goals, I want to say. So right now, what I am projecting myself towards is a master's of fine art eventually. Coming from, I have a science and tech background, so this is very new to me, given that I don't have kind of a traditional bachelor's education in fine art. I was looking at programs that were sort of define themselves as bridge programs between a master's eventually and either someone who has a career outside of the arts or someone who has graduated from a Bachelor of Fine Arts but wants a little bit more time to sort of improve their practice and make a stronger application for an eventual master's. So I found a couple of those programs. There weren't any in Canada, unfortunately, but a couple in the States and a couple in London too. So yeah, kind of just cast a wide net, got into a couple places. One was an academy in New York. The other one was the School of the Art Institute of Chicago, which is known for very contemporary art. I don't want to say exclusively abstract, but definitely contemporary and kind of innovating in terms of using material. And then the third one I got into was Goldsmiths in London, which is, I'd say, even more contemporary, very much about kind of ideas and concepts.
Right. And you chose
Chicago. I chose the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. I think the New York Academy was a good fit. I do figurative work in sort of a traditional rendering, I would say, a little bit like Renaissance inspired. That said, I wanted to push myself and do something a little bit new and explore a little bit more of maybe not the abstract world, but just the material world and what it's like to kind of play with materials without being so focused on rendering something realistic or representational. So I decided to sort of, go for something that's I think is going to push me outside of my comfort zone a little bit. It's a good school and they've got art history and everything. It's a university and I think that'll open some doors in terms of teaching and maybe applying for a master's eventually.
Right. So talking about materials, I understand that this new program, it will challenge you to explore a different approach to what you do usually. Can you tell us what materials are you working right now with? Like, what's your favorite medium?
Yeah, so I kind of go back and forth between charcoal and oil paint, and I do try to use both of them in a single image, letting each of their sort of strengths and characteristics exist at the same time in one image. They're two very different mediums. Charcoal is very quick, very gestural. You can capture, I think, a lot of energy and a lot of movement. Oil paint is, famously, it can be quite slow. It takes a long time to dry. It almost forces patience on you. Whereas I find with charcoal, you can really just get an image down in a couple seconds even. And there's things about both of those that I really like. And I kind of like the tension between them. And I want to have a lot, use a lot of that movement and use sort of the sketchy, almost unfinished sort of gestural look of charcoal with the solidity and kind of monumentality and all the history carried by oil painting, just to kind of, the painting, art history canon. So I use both. I use a lot of layering, a lot of fixative, starting often with charcoal, layering paint over it, letting that dry, going in with more charcoal, and really just trying to get both of those to sort of exist in the same material world.
Wait, so this approach to materials, was this something that you learned at Ottawa School of Art? Did you have this approach before joining our program? How did this happen?
It happened here at the school. Yep. I came in, I had taken a painting course here and there, nothing very serious. It happened in a drawing class, actually, specifically second year drawing, second semester. When I think just the teacher...
Catherine?
It was Catherine, yeah. Catherine Drysdale encouraged me to, I think, be a little bit less precious and not be so concerned with getting proportions right and getting everything right. It was more about getting marks on the page and kind of expressing it and just letting the image almost reveal itself to you. And so that kind of, I think, unlocked something. I got a little bit looser and freer with the way that I was using charcoal. And that's when that kind of clicked in to, I think that was the first time I sort of made that connection between ideas and something almost abstract and material. So that for me was that was when I felt like I sort of hooked into like a practice, I guess, or when I was suddenly able to articulate my ideas a little bit, and connect them to a medium and to how I was using that medium.
So let's talk about the subject matter of your work. Why did you choose, like, what subject matter do you have? Are you concerned with certain ideas? Like, how do you approach your compositions and your paintings?
Yeah, so I think subject matter wise, this is almost an easy one because I've always, like, ever since I was a kid, I've just been really drawn to figures and drawing people, whether portraits or bodies, almost like creating people, creating characters. I don't really have a lot of interest in landscapes or still lifes. Like, it's always been the figure for me. And it's almost, there's just something is like lights up a little bit when I am drawing a figure that doesn't light up when I'm doing drawing other things or painting other things.
So you're saying it's subjective.
So that's kind of where it started, and then I have been trying to, articulate that in terms of ideas and what that is. I mean, I think a lot of it comes from some personal history with mental health struggles, and just sort of trying to understand, what is going on inside the human brain, and how does that sort of extend through the human body? What does that look like in terms of motion, in terms of tension? How can that be represented in the human body? And then there's sort of, again, that tension between what I think can be, these really big, really vast, extreme feelings that can happen inside a person's brain, essentially, contrasted with this sort of limited, physical body that we exist inside of. I think there's sort of a tension there, and almost an irony maybe in us just sort of being, I mean, for all intents and purposes, animals. Like, we're sort of just these organic beings, but we have these just very, very big, very painful feelings and experiences. And I think kind of the tension there is really interesting for me, and to sort of express that, and also just find kind of what that looks like in terms of movement, and its impact on, like, the flesh and on physical motion.
Right. So can you describe one word for listeners?
Yes. So I'll describe one that I've called ambiguity. So I'd always had, I guess, traditionally in the last couple of years, done a single figure, probably just to, kind of get my head around it. So I tried to add a second figure in for a recent mentorship I did. So there's two of those pieces upstairs with the two figures. And so one is sort of these two, I guess I would describe it as two female bodies that seem to be intersecting in almost sort of an X composition. So to do that, I mean, I largely use self-portraiture. So I think that is, well, that's not, I'd say, defining element of my work. It is something I think that is important. So I used, references of my own body. Started with one, and then I'll sort of sketch out one, and then find a place where I feel like another one connects in, and then I'll start to build those together. And then I'll continue to kind of layer going between the two figures, sort of finding a way to make them into one, and to sort of give the impression that they are both merging and pulling apart at the same time. So that is sort of the result of what you'll see upstairs in my show. We've got these two figures who I've used this kind of layering charcoal method. And then I've added oil paint on top to sort of further connect them and give them a little bit of flesh tone, a little bit of kind of life, and a little bit of realism to create a little bit of contrast, I'd say, between their underpainting and that sort of surface layer flesh. So I think, what you end up with is definitely is kind of a struggle. And I think it sort of represents the struggle within the self. So you have, one body, maybe one kind of existence, but you might have multiple identities. You might sort of feel two different things at the same time. You might feel that you are something. You might define yourself as something, but you want to be something else. I took the term ambiguity from Simone de Beauvoir and her writing Ambiguity of Ethics. Ethics of Ambiguity. I always confuse those two. But she just talks about...
It's good to know the theory.
Yes, yeah. And I think I had been working that out, but just doing a bit of reading and research on sort of this like the philosophy of like being gave me a little bit of language to be able to talk about it. So it's sort of that, you exist both as subject and as object, and there is a tension there, and that is sort of this ambiguity. So that is what I was looking to represent, was this sort of what's the word, like pluralistic experience within a single individual.
So you discussed about how you approach the subject matter of your work from a subjective perspective. Now let's focus on the audience. Like, how do you feel about what do you think, or do you think your work is trying to attract viewers, disturb them, challenge them, or something else?
I think I would maybe describe it as trying to confront them. Challenge, I would say a little bit, but I think maybe reveal something within themselves. My work could be described, I think, as a bit dark. It's definitely psychological. I've heard it described as very intense and a bit disturbing. So I think there is kind of that, maybe an element of the abject, looking at an image that disturbs, but you're not quite able to look away, and maybe there's something that you relate to in it, or whatever it is expressing you find familiar. And that's kind of what I hope to have happen for my audience, is they see something maybe unpleasant or something a bit intense and confrontational, and they recognize something in that, and that is a little bit uncomfortable because it's something that is dark and unpleasant. So it's a little bit of it trying to sort of mine, a viewer's experience, where they can relate to maybe a time that they have, whether it's questioned themselves or questioned their own existence or questioned kind of their construction of themselves and of the world around them. I want to challenge that notion that, things are fixed and everything makes sense, because it doesn't always make sense. And I think it's important to recognize that.
My next question would be, are there any artists or movements that inspire you, or even films? Or
there's a lot. I should have made a list before I came in. So in terms of artists, I would say Francis Bacon is someone I always come back to. I think there was in his work a little bit of an attempt at getting at something essential, but without maybe what I'd call a hopeful lens. I mean, his work can be described as pretty macabre, pretty dark. And I think he also did, he sort of questioned, I think, religious norms and religious authority. You can see that in his Pope work. I love his transparency and his sort of his barely there kind of rooms in the backgrounds of his paintings. So he is someone that I'm always kind of, I think I lean on a little bit. I think you can see him in my work. So I like him a lot. Jenny Saville is someone who I sort of see myself in conversation with a little bit, and I think that's maybe just by virtue of being a woman and representing myself in a lot of my work, and also kind of calling back to some of the traditional methods of painting and representation. I think I break that down a little bit, so she's always someone who I think about.
She's actually having a big solo show in Venice right now.
Oh, she is, for the Biennale?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, you know what? I have seen that. I didn't see where it was, but I saw some of her work. And I really like the German expressionists. Like, I'm thinking, it's just with some of the stuff I'm doing now after my show here, Kirchner, Kukoczka, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. I'm not sure if he was a German expressionist. I think he was Russian, I want to say. But even like Paul Klee, who's a little bit more simple than some of my stuff. I think there is a kind of an urgency and almost like a childlike type of rendering that I think a lot of them did, that for me, it is breaking away from, trying to make something beautiful and trying to make something realistic and impressive, and just trying to get kind of an urgent idea out on the page. Films, I'm a big Kubrick fan. I love alien sci-fi movies. I think you can see that in my work too. There's definitely an element of sort of like an alien species.
Great. Okay. Yeah. So now I'm curious about the life as an artist, like more concretely about your situation. So, what does being an artist mean to you right now?
It feels like it's something I think about. I was trying to think about how I would describe it. I think it's almost it's a practice. I know people call it that a lot, like what your artistic practice is. It's a little bit of a way of living, I think, of sort of developing habits and ways of letting, I think, the world kind of come through you and then getting it out. And so I think that, that getting it out is what becomes the practice and what becomes sort of the discipline, is as you experience things, as you consume other art, content, other people, it's just sort of trying to keep this channel open for letting those things almost, I guess, like digest inside you, and then they come out as your art in a way. And I think it's just trying to keep that channel open, and also honoring that in a way. I think it's easy to get overwhelmed, or to have some of that stuff turn into inertia or depression, or it can kind of shut you down. I think I think it's just sort of honoring the fact that you are sensitive to the things around you and to how you experience life, and just letting that come out the other side.
And what about the realities of trying to become a professional artist in Canada? How do you feel about the current context?
Well, I'm right at the door there. So just kind of about to start. I had my first experience applying for a residency, which I enjoyed. I found it fun. I thought some of these, applying for things would be a chore, would be more difficult. Now haven't done it very much, so maybe it will get to that point. But I found it pretty easy to get excited about. It didn't feel like work or feel that difficult. It was just something that I truly wanted. And I got the application out pretty easily. I did not get it. So that was kind of an experience I've been warned about. You got to get used to, putting yourself out there and just being
lots
rejected.
Of applications, right?
Yeah. So that was kind of a first experience with that.
That's something you learn in the business of art class, like how to manage applying for shows and get the opportunities going for you. It was taught
by Atticus Gordon. It was really, really good. A lot of really practical advice, things that I think would probably take you years to figure out on your own through trial and error. I felt that it was sort of condensed into a really comprehensive course. So that was really great. And the course also had us, like, one of the assignments was to actually apply for something real. So that's sort of, maybe something that I would have been like, oh, I'm not going to get this. You just put yourself out there and you do it because you have to. And it kind of, I think, gets you started in that path of just applying for things and getting used to that.
But how do you feel what do you think about the commercial side of the art?
I guess I don't know much more about it than I know about kind of the cultural institutional side, I would say. For me, it feels like an avenue, this is probably oversimplifying it, but one of two kind of major directions that you can go in with art, which is commercial or kind of academic, institutional. So it's, I would say that I don't really know a ton about it yet. It seems like maybe there's a different maybe lens over your art making. If it's commercial, like, you're sort of thinking about a market and about fulfilling a demand, which I think could maybe change your art for the better or the worse. I don't know. But it does seem like something that, is maybe a little bit more business focused, a little bit more formulaic. I'm not sure. I hope to find out.
Well, you'll find out if you are planning to collaborate with a commercial gallery.
Yeah, that's true.
That's something. So, what advice would you give to incoming students here at the Ottawa School of Art?
I think I would say for me, I think the hardest thing and the most helpful thing was to kind of let go a little bit. I don't know if it's, like, maybe not obvious, but it can be really hard, I think, to take risks when you're doing art. There is sort of this perfectionism and this drive to make something beautiful, make something look good, make something that people like. And so I would say try to use the assignments, use the teachers, use the school to try and undo that a little bit, and just make and try to do it fearlessly. Try to identify where you are, maybe being limited by your desire to make something good and just make something. And I think for me, that was the most helpful, was when I sort of figured out how to let go of that a little bit. That's when I think I started getting somewhere interesting. So I think that would be probably my best advice. I guess
this will be my last question.
Okay.
So how do you feel about the future right now?
I feel good. I feel very excited. Like I said, I'm coming out of a 10-year kind of corporate information technology career, so this is very different for me. I think it's it's great that I learned what I don't want to do, and I spent 9 years learning that. Not everyone has. If you're coming in, maybe you're younger, you're out of school, or you've been doing art your whole life. That might be a different perspective, but I think, coming from sort of a corporate background, it's really exciting to kind of learn that there is a world that values creativity and art and sees it as something important and something valuable. Because coming from the for-profit industry, where we made tech, it's not valued as highly. So I think that has just been it was kind of life affirming. So I'm a little bit apprehensive, I guess, but I think that's probably a good thing. That's probably normal, especially going on to more education. I would say overall, I'm really excited.
Thank you for joining me, Frances, and congratulations on graduating from the OSA Fine Arts Diploma program.